Welcome to the Your Fitness Chick podcast. Become your best self. I'm your host, Abby Smiley Krause. I am a personal trainer, a wellness enthusiast, and I'm not gonna lie, a certified dog-obsessed human. This isn't just another fitness podcast. It's your wake-up call to level up your life. In this podcast, I'll be diving into everything from crushing your workouts to shifting your mindset, because being your best self isn't just about lifting weights, it's about lifting your life. Whether you're here to get fit, find inspiration, or just stop settling for an average life, you're in the right place. We're talking about tapping into your full potential, expanding your horizons, and building a life so good, you'll wonder why you didn't start sooner. So let's lace up, show up, and start making things happen. This isn't just a podcast. It's your permission slip to dream big, work hard, and create the life you've always wanted. Join me here every Tuesday for a fresh episode. Welcome to the Your Fitness Chick podcast. I'm Abby, your fitness chick, and today I'm going to be sharing something really pretty personal about my life. And the reason why I'm choosing to become transparent about one of these darkest chapters that I've ever experienced is because I know that when I was going through it, I felt alone. I felt like it was only me. And that just really created a more downward spiral for me. It created a longer duration that it took for me to actually heal. And so I almost feel obligated, but in a very good way, to share my story with some of you who might be experiencing the same struggle. And if I can help one person, then it will have made it all completely worth it. So, when I was 19, I actually experienced one of the darkest moments of my life. I was sexually assaulted at the very beginning of my freshman year of college. And when it happened, I did not have any tools to cope. I was beside myself. I had always been the good girl and, a great student and the daughter that, my parents were proud of. And it took me down, and it took me down really quite good. So I did not know how to process the fear, the shame, the definite anger, and just that overwhelming grief that followed this experience. And so I felt like I had nowhere to turn. I didn't even tell my parents for about 5 years. I hardly told anyone about it. So I felt like I had nowhere to turn until I discovered that I could turn to food and alcohol. Food especially. It became my safe space, and it was always there. It didn't judge me, and for a moment, just a moment, it made me feel okay. But that comfort came with a cost. So at first it started small. I just found myself turning to more types of comfort food, almost like a pacifier, to just soothe myself. Then it became kind of excessive. It kind of began to spiral out of control. And I went from being a size 2 to a size 18 plus in less than a year. And I was binge eating really to the point of physical pain. And if I wasn't eating, I was drinking alcohol. And both of those really became my escape from the emotions that I did not know how to face. So I remember one time I had decided, I'm ready to change. I can't stand myself. And so I decided it was time to get my life back on track. And I signed up for Jenny Craig. Do you guys remember Jenny Craig? I was so determined to lose weight, and I had to drive about an hour to get to the nearest location. And they gave me a week's worth of food, including these little desserts that were supposed to be like my treats. And during my whole ride home, I ate every single one of those desserts. And before I even got out of my car, the guilt hit me like a brick. And that was a moment I realized it just was not about food. There was something so much deeper driving my behavior. But at the time, I couldn't name it, and I most certainly did not know how to fix it. So as the years went by, it got worse before it even got better. And I would drive from one fast food restaurant to the next, ordering full meals at each place, eating everything in my car, like incognito, so that nobody could see me. And I would feel so sick and so ashamed. And yet I just could not stop. And that's the thing about binge eating. It's not about the hunger. It's about trying to fill this emotional void. So for me, that void was the traumatic experience of the sexual assault. And I did not know how to talk about what had happened to me. So I buried it. And I buried it under burgers and French fries and milkshakes, hoping that somehow that pain would stay buried there too. But it didn't. And the guilt and the shame, it only grew. And it wasn't just about the food anymore. It was about who I thought I was. I believed I was completely broken, unworthy, and the binging just reinforced those beliefs. It was this vicious cycle, and I did not know how to break free. I did not know. So looking back, I realize now that what I was doing had nothing to do with food. It was about trying to soothe the pain so deep that I didn't know how else to handle it. And I know I'm not alone in this, and that's why I felt called to do this podcast. So when we experience trauma, whether it's something as devastating as what I went through, some people have gone through much worse, or even just smaller moments that make us feel really unsafe, our brains are always looking for a way to protect us. So food, for many of us, becomes a really good, easy safety net. It's reliable, it's comforting, and for a brief moment, it really does numb that pain. But the problem is that comfort does not last. Why does this happen? And why does trauma make us turn to food? Let's break this down. First, I want to say I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, but I've lived through it and I've came out better on the other side, and I'm just sharing my experiences and the knowledge that I've gained. So, when you go through trauma, your brain goes into survival mode. It starts looking for ways to cope with those intense emotions, the fear, the sadness, the shame. And for many of us, the food, like I said before, it becomes a really easy answer. But here's what happens. When you eat, your brain releases dopamine, and that's a real feel-good chemical. It's a temporary escape from the pain, but man, it serves its purpose in that moment, right? But the relief doesn't last. You go back for more, and then it turns into a cycle because you're trying to fill this emotional void, and you're not going to do it with food. So you just keep repeating it over and over and over again. And then binge eating is not about the hunger. It's about the emotional survival. And food fills the void when you feel like there's no other way to soothe yourself. It becomes a way to distract yourself from the hurt, from the fear, or even the numbness that trauma can leave behind. So after a binge, that's when the guilt sets in. You think, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I remember catching myself in my rearview mirror in my car eating like I was going to the electric chair, like I was embarrassed at the reflection in the mirror. I thought, why can't I control myself? And that guilt turns into extreme shame. And the shame reinforces the cycle. And you tell yourself you're not good enough, that you failed again. And the next binge just feels like it's right around the corner because it usually is. And it's a trap I know all too well. So here's the kicker. When we go into extreme restriction mode, it just makes it worse. Because after a binge, I might go into restrictive mode and say, that's it. I'm done. I'm only going to eat super clean and healthy from now on. But when you cut all your good foods and your favorite foods out, it makes you only increase the chance of another binge because we always want what we can't have. It's like your brain rebels against the restriction, and the cycle starts all over again. So here's the good news though. You do not have to stay trapped in this cycle. I know if you're in it, it feels like hell. I know how heavy it feels, but I promise you, there is a way out. So breaking free starts with understanding that you are not broken and you are not alone. It's about learning to listen to what your body and your mind really need and taking small, manageable steps towards healing. So I want to share some tips with you for breaking the cycle. And I want to start with acknowledging the root cause. The first step is to recognize that binge eating isn't the problem. It's the symptom. And for me, I had to face the trauma that I had been running from, that I had been numbing myself from, that I didn't want to feel. And that didn't mean jumping into the deep end right away, but slowly allowing myself to acknowledge this happened to me. And it's okay to feel hurt. Those are justifiable feelings. And therapy can be an incredible tool here. I highly recommend it if you're going through something that you can't just sort through, because it can be extremely beneficial. Talking to someone really helped me to connect the dots between what my emotions were and what my behavior was as a reflection of that. So after a binge, instead of saying, I'm such a failure, I did it again, ask yourself, what was I feeling before I did that? Because guilt will keep you stuck, and curiosity opens the door to understanding. So remember, one binge does not define you. It's what you do next that matters. So start small. When you start to feel that urge to binge, take a pause just for a second. I know it's hard. But ask yourself, am I hungry or am I hurting? And if you're hungry, by all means, give yourself permission to eat. But if it's emotional, try journaling, calling a friend, stepping outside, petting your dog, whatever comforts you. Because the goal here is not to be perfect. It's about to build awareness of what your triggers are and what's making you go into that binge mode. And you guys, healing is just messy. It's going to be messy. And you'll have days where you feel like you're moving backwards. And that's okay. What you want to do is celebrate your small wins. Maybe you paused before a binge. Maybe you forgave yourself a little faster than you normally would. And those small moments will add up. You don't have to do this alone. For people who find people who understand, because there's a lot more of us than what you think. And whether it's a therapist, there's support groups, there's books or a close friend or listening to podcasts like this to make you understand that you are not alone and you are not the only one who's experiencing this. And people will listen to you like that without judgment. And healing happens in connection. So lastly, though, you guys, I want you to give yourself grace. I was so bad at this. I just was an all or nothing mindset, and perfectionism is just the way I went. But you have to give yourself grace, because I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. I mean, we almost are, but not quite. And I still slip up sometimes. It's not often, but I would be lying if I said it never happens. There are days when life just gets too overwhelming for me, and I catch myself turning to food and alcohol for that good old comfort. And you know what? That's okay. I'm human. But what's different now is how I respond. Instead of letting it spiral into this guilt and shame blame game, I pause. I tell myself, okay, that was not a win. Why did I do that? What caused this? And let's reset and move forward. It's not about avoiding every slip up. It's about how you handle them. So the truth is, the slipping up, it does not make you a failure. It makes you human. So what matters is that you do not let those moments define your journey, because progress is not a straight line. It is like this. It is all over the place. Okay? So when you screw up, step back and just say, okay, what caused me to feel this way. And instead of beating yourself up, now I use these moments as opportunities to kind of check in with myself. What's amazing is it no longer takes me down like it used to. I don't let guilt or shame take the wheel anymore because I know I'm in control. I just reset, restart, and I move forward. Every day is a new day for a fresh start. So I want you to know it's okay not to have it all figured out. I'm still figuring it out, okay? But even when you've done the work, those old patterns might still pop up like they do for me. But the difference is how you'll respond. So breaking free from binge eating and the guilt that comes with it, it is not easy. It is not easy at all, but it's possible. And I am living proof of that. So it's not about never slipping up. It's about learning to get back up and to keep going. Your relationship with food does not define you. You are defined by your resilience and by your ability to rise again and again and again, no matter how many times that you fall. This week, I want you to give yourself grace. Slip-ups will happen, but the power to reset and move forward, it's yours. You hold the pen. You get to write the story. So make it a story of strength, growth, and progress. You got this. You can do it. Your best self is waiting. Get busy and go meet them. Stay strong, stay consistent, and I'll see you next week.
Hey, it's Abby, your fitness chick. Thanks for checking out today's episode. With your continued support, I can keep creating inspiring episodes just like this one. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. To stay motivated all week long, be sure to follow me on all my social media platforms. The links for those can be found in the show notes. Check out my website by visiting www.yourfitnesschick.com. And I'd like to thank my production company, Coraggio Media, but most of all you, my listeners, for helping to inspire me each and every day. I'll see you on the next episode.